Welcome. You're joining us today for a session called Connecting with Millennials Through Social Media. My name is Ashley Lusk, and I'm the Manager of Marketing and Communication for National 4-H Council, and I'll allow my colleague to introduce herself.
I'm Donna, Arriaga, and I manage online and mobile fundraising for National 4-H Council.
If you have any questions at any point in the presentation, feel free to tweet us using the hashtag #4HMCon. Again, that's #4HMCon. So we'll get started. What you might not know is that there are 6 million 4-Hers in our organization today. Because we're more than 100 years old, we're also the largest youth organization, and that means about 60 million people identify as 4-H alumni. But the challenge for us has been that we haven't tracked or maintained connections with these 4-H alumni. So we started to ask ourselves, what would happen if we could connect those 60 million 4-H alumni to our movement today? Well, ideally you'd see more donations, more volunteers, and those skill sets that they learned in 4-H would return to 4-Hers today through mentorships. What we're going to present to you today is a case study of how we realized that our alumni strategy needed some work and how we plan to rethink our communications with our alumni. Let me tell you a little bit about where we started. At the national level, there wasn't really a program that would distinguish alumni from the general public. Those who opted in would receive a quarterly newsletter with general information about the 4-H program. They would also receive 2 to 3 donation appeals annually that were more general that were continuing information about the 4-H program at large. At the state and county level, there were various programs that varied by state, and some states had incentives while others didn't. Some started the alumni program right after 4-Hers graduated from our organization, while others waited until much later in life when potential donors had funds. Quite frankly, when they had extra disposable income that might go to major gifts or for future estate planning. We began to realize that this alumni effort needed some work and needed to become more cohesive. So we started to recognize ways that we might redirect our alumni approach. We first began with 4-H Alumni Month, which happens each September, and it tends to be throughout our social media pages. We approach 4-H alumni and talk about their role in our organization today. We take a look back at what 4-H looked like when they were 4-Hers and part of the organization, and we highlight our famous alumni like Orville Redenbacher and Julia Roberts. We also began something called the Legacy Awards Gala. In addition to being a successful fundraiser, we also had an opportunity to recognize alumni who had been successful in their careers. This year, we had the opportunity to highlight Jennifer Nettles, who you'll see here. She's singing with Clovers and Company, which is a Georgia 4-H program that she was part of, and which she admits really helped her get to where she is today. Another opportunity that we created was the ability for corporations with a large contingency of 4-H alumni to have volunteer opportunities in their community. We also realized that we needed to personalize the approach to alumni. We know that 4-H alumni often have additional roles as parents, volunteers, and 4-H professionals. So we began thinking about how people could self-select their roles and priorities in our organization. This also allowed us to begin thinking how we might segment our audience and send alumni specific and special messages. These efforts coincided with a new partnership with Achieve to directly determine how we might reach the millennial segment. This millennial segment were highly representative of our 4-H alumni, but were lacking in engagement opportunities. In our partnership with Achieve, we decided to focus on 3 areas. We would create a series of focus groups with young alumni. We would test new donation appeals to see how they might work and understand what would be interesting to those who are receiving them. And we also decided to specifically target ways that we could grow our house file and build an email listserv that would be sustainable. So now we're going to break down this relationship and our partnership with Achieve a little further to examine what we learned about our millennial alumni during this period. During the focus groups, we met with at least 3 focus groups that could be anywhere in size between 5 and 25 individuals. And these people tended to be that typical millennium age of 18 to 35. Most of them were past participants in the 4-H program as a youth and now might be a 4-H professional, a volunteer, a parent, or perhaps just an alum. We met with them through state and county fairs and also at 4-H State Congress, which if you know anything about 4-Hers, this is a very exciting time for them and they're engaged in the program and excited to talk about it. During the focus groups, we asked questions that would help us understand their interest in making donations, how they would like to receive communication, and the type of opportunities they would like to see part of a 4-H alumni community. So now we're going to break that down a little further and discuss what we learned. When it comes to donation with these millennial alumni, we weren't very surprised to learn that they don't have a lot of expendable cash. A lot of them are collegiate age individuals. They may be young professionals who are just getting started in their first job, or even young parents who don't have a lot of extra money on hand. So they want micro-giving opportunities, the ability to give in small denominations, maybe monthly, maybe annually, but they don't want to feel daunted by large asks for $100 or more. They're looking for very specific and tangible causes to give to, and we'll talk more about their desire for specificity later. They want to make sure that their money is being used well and for programs that they find worthy. Let's talk a little bit about their communication and community wishes. We learned that almost always they prefer to be communicated with through Facebook and Twitter or email versus a glossy magazine or a letter. They want content that's visually stimulating, that's also personalized, and that's geographically specific. It continued to be a theme that we found that 4-H alumni wanted to stay localized in their community. They wanted to know what was happening in their 4-H program, where they were, where they grew up, or where they are today. They also bleed green. They want to serve as ambassadors for the mission. They care about the brand. They're really just trying to find ways that they can arrive at that point of continuing to talk about the 4-H mission. I don't think it's surprising either to learn that 4-Hers wanted to find ways to network with other young alumni and to understand how the skills they picked up in 4-H could be helpful to them today to find a job or an internship or find their way into a college. So to summarize, it's pretty obvious that 4-Hers have an extremely strong loyalty to our brand. They care about what we do, they want to remain connected, they want to talk about it. However, they don't necessarily understand what their role is when it comes to being a 4-H alum, especially if they're in that sort of pivotal area of not yet returning to 4-H as a parent or a professional or a volunteer. They want to know what's going to happen if they do join our 4-H alumni community. What are the benefits and opportunities of participating in the program? So now I'm going to kick it over to Donna to talk a little bit about the second level of our work with Achieve, our donation appeals.
So we started our email engagement with this audience with a welcome series. It was a 3-part welcome series. The first message was very general, just thank you for joining the community. Content was a welcome. It also provided alumni with a preview into the types of content that they could look forward to seeing in ongoing email communications. The call to action in that first message was a pretty soft call to action. We had Twitter and Facebook icons, links, encouraging further engagement on our social channels. The second message was an opportunity for us to announce iPad winners. So winners of iPad throughout the alumni acquisition promotion. So content for that message was, of course, focused on the winners of the iPad. We also featured an alumni spotlight, and we had a poll. So the call to action for our second message, it was certainly an active call to action, and the poll was specifically asking alumni how they would like to get involved with 4-H. When we got to our third message of the welcome series, we really honed in and funneled content down to one specific call to action. Step up and share your talents. So all content in this message was streamlined on driving that call to action. The question was, what talent or skill would you share with the 4-H community? So we got through the welcome series, and the second part of that engagement was looking at a fundraising appeal. How can we usher this new group of alumni through the welcome series and hopefully onto a fundraising appeal? So the interesting thing is we concluded the onboarding series, and just as we were wrapping that up, we were starting to initiate our end-of-year fundraising campaign. Last year, our 2012 end-of-year campaign, last year's end-of-year campaign consisted of 3 appeal messages. We had 2 hard asks, and then we followed up with a closing ask that included end-of-year urgency. So when we took a look at how we wanted to bridge this new alumni audience into the end-of-year fundraising campaign, we decided to suppress them from the first end-of-year appeal. It was an interesting decision because, on the one hand, what we know generally about new online supporters is when somebody has taken a recent action, they're much more likely to take a subsequent action on your behalf than someone who perhaps has been sitting in your email file, maybe sitting there dormant for a while. But what we also wanted to recognize is these were brand new opted-in alum who, through our focus groups, we knew had some limited capacity to give. So we wanted to be very respectful of that, but we also wanted to fold them into this engagement opportunity. So we decided to hold them off from the first appeal and then include them in appeal number 2, which was that hard ask, and then appeal number 3, which was the kind of closing out end-of-year ask. The appeals that we sent to our alumni audience, those appeals 2 and 3, we made sure that those appeals contained very alumni-centric messaging. We also took an opportunity to explore some A/B subject line testing to get a feel for which types of messages resonated best with this audience. Now, when we take a look at how our new millennial alumni audience performed on the message as compared to our general audience, we can see that their open rates were outstanding compared to our general audience, and also compared to nonprofit benchmark averages. On the end-of-year message 2, which would have been the first appeal message the alumni audience received, they had an open rate of 21%, which we were ecstatic to see. End-of-year message 3, we saw the open rates decline a little bit to 18.31%, which was still a very, very strong open rate for an appeal message. And the other caveat I think that is worth mentioning is that the subject lines for our appeal messages very clearly demarked that they were appeal messages. So just seeing the teaser subject line in your inbox, our target audience knew that we were asking for support. So given that, this millennial alumni group still performed just superbly on open rates. When we look at click-through rates, unfortunately, we see that go way down. And although still when we're comparing to our general audience, still outperforming to some extent. And then when we step further down, when we're talking about appeals, the big question is conversions. Well, how did they perform? How many alum donated? So unfortunately, our results were very, very modest. And after some investigation and some introspection into our campaign, we realized that this very likely had a lot to do with additional learnings on this audience. So one case in point, for example, exploring, do they have a preference for donating to national 4-H, or do they have a preference for donating to their local programs? Based on the findings from our focus groups, this strong appeal and affinity to local 4-H really tells us that moving forward in the future, it's worthwhile to test, to do some additional A/B testing on those kinds of local donations versus national. So we certainly have some learnings and some room for growth with this audience, but at least looking at the starting point with open rates, it's so encouraging to know that this audience really cares and is motivated and primed.
So you might wonder how we got all of those emails that we sent, the email addresses for those that received the fundraising appeal, and that was through our third effort with Achieve to have some targeted approach to collecting email addresses. We created, based on the focus group feedback, an app that would live on our Facebook page. The app invited people to join the alumni community, and there was an incentive for doing so. If they joined the alumni community, they were entered to win one of 4 iPads that we would give out during that month-long period. We also made sure to highlight this during 4-H Alumni Month, so it received a lot of exposure. We sent out a postcard and a direct mail postcard to this audience as well, to our alumni audience at large, and invited them to come visit the page and submit their information for a chance to win as well. This was the first time we had designed any kind of alumni material that specifically took a look at what 4-H alumni might look like. You see that we have a younger millennial image here, and we really played up something that those in the focus group told us they were interested in, which is a way for them to talk about their 4-H experience and connect to the great memories they have of being in our program. We gave it a very different look from any of our other materials in terms of the color and the style to make sure that it really resonated that this was something different and new. During that month, we had a total, or more than 2,500 names that were submitted through the application. And obviously, when you look at this in the scope of the fact that there are more than 60 million alumni, it really is a small percentage. However, for us in this first effort and really only promoting this through 2 channels, we felt very strongly that it went well. In terms of the demographics of the people who submitted their information, we assumed it would be young alumni, which were really about 25% of the people who were on our page at the time. However, it turned out that there was a much more middle-aged audience that this seemed to resonate with. They had the highest percentage of individuals who are on our Facebook page at the time, and also the highest percent of individuals who submitted their information to the app. So it was great to learn that this could still be appealing, or perhaps the incentive was still appealing for an even older audience. So something that we started noticing soon after was that millennial alumni were starting to come back to our page. They were having a voice that we hadn't seen on our page in a very long time. They were talking about their collegiate 4-H experience, and so we decided to put some effort into really reaching out and engaging that audience. We ran a series of Facebook ads that were targeted towards that audience, and we created an engagement strategy that would really take them through participation at the highest level to donation, and recognizing that that was really the pathway we wanted all of our audience members and our alumni to be on as well. And what happened was interesting. As our Facebook page grew, so did the number of Millennial alumni who were coming and finding our page. We now have about 50% of our audience that are around the alumni age or just slightly younger, and we think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're posting content and we're using ads that are specifically targeted to those individuals. So that's given us a lot of thought about how we engage them online and to make sure we have a really balanced amount of participatory opportunities for those who are the millennial age as well. So I'm going to kick it back over to Donna to talk a little bit about our onboarding opportunities.
So where we're at now is really taking a look at reworking our welcome series and developing a more fully fleshed out onboarding communication piece for alumni. And the purpose of this, we want to send frequent communications, targeted, and also make sure that they're highly interactive, and design the communication stream to really usher them up an engagement ladder. So looking at developing the onboarding entry series, really aligning social media and email editorial calendars so they run on parallel tracks, and leveraging email as a starting point for conversations, initiating some conversations via email and continuing those conversations out into more dynamic spaces of social media. And also looking at email as an opportunity to aggregate some of the really more high impact news or more highly engaged news that's occurring across our social media channels. A look at the structure of the types of messages we're looking at for the onboarding series. We're looking at a structure that is comprised of one core message, one core call to action. So each email message contains one core thread that can kind of funnel people down through the content and then drive them to continued engagement onto our social media channels. And really looking at this approach as being a way to really respect and respond to the fact that people are very crazy busy, and we want to make sure that our communications are extremely targeted, easy to scan, easy to read, and easy to take action on.
So we began to think about what we were learning through this experience, and we realized that we had both challenges and opportunities. Some of the challenges were that 4-H alumni really wanted to participate at a local level, but states and counties didn't always have resources or staff to create sustainable alumni programs. So that really provided an opportunity for us to create a national alumni database and to be able to work directly with states and counties to bring content that would be locally of interest to alumni and to provide giving opportunities at the local level so they could still support programs that they're familiar with. There are other opportunities for us at the national level, which is to try and find engagement through digital means. Things like tweet chats and live streaming special events, having guest bloggers from people who've been successful because of their 4-H experience, and then making sure that we are engaging collegiate alumni, that first level of 4-H graduate, so that they become a lifetime 4-H alumni supporter. So those are a few of the things that we've picked up. We think we've learned a lot. We're excited to see what the next steps will bring for us, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you have at this time. Again, you can share your thoughts using the hashtag #4HMCon, and we'll certainly be here to answer some of those. So again, thank you for joining us, and my name is Ashley.
And my name is Donna.
And feel free to send any questions our way.